welcome back. My name is Lexi Jong, and here I like to talk about luxury makeup. Today we're going to be taking a look at one of the recent Dior Quints. This is number 159, Plum Tulle. This is part of the permanent line. It is not limited edition. I picked this up a little while ago and just haven't gotten around to really playing with it. But I do have 4 simple looks to share with you today, along with my thoughts. Let's go ahead and start with swatches. So these are the first 3 shades in the palette. And these are the bottom 2 shades. So you can see here that you've got quite a bit of different finishes here, which I feel like Dior does that in a lot of their Quints now. And I think that's a really smart decision. It gives you a lot of versatility. So this first shade here is going to be a satin metallic formula, and you can see there is the slightest tinge of a rosy, kind of like a rosy purple shade here, but there's a little bit of pink to it. It's almost like a highlighter, but it's a bit deeper. So it's more pigmented and it's just a little bit darker than what you would see for a shade in a highlight. But you can see that it does have a similar quality to it. The second shade here almost looks as though it's matte, but if you look very closely, there is a little bit of shimmer. There's a little sheen to it. There are not any glitter particles that I can see, but there is something a little bit shimmery, kind of like really fine pearlescent quality to this. And it's kind of dispersed throughout a matte base. Then we have this purple shade here in the center, and this shade is a little misleading in the swatch. So it almost looks like a, kind of like the color of my shirt, but it looks like a purple matte, but yet when you put it on, there actually is a satin sheen as you spread it out. And I will have that in a couple demos where you can see that. So the color, it's matte but there's a satin sheen overlay on top of that. And that satin sheen overlay is really only evident when you wear it over a larger area. So if you're just dabbing it on like the inner or the outer corner or something like that, you're really only going to see the matte qualities to this. Next up, we have this taupey brown shade, and it's actually more of a soft brown than a taupe. And this is a satin finish. It's a very, very beautiful shade. It helps neutralize kind of this whole palette, makes everything very wearable, but it's not my favorite. Then next up, we have this burgundy plum shade. This is like a true plum. You've got a touch of that red in there. And this is a matte shade, and it's pretty deep. I actually applied this on my outer corner today. And one of the things that I noted with this particular shade is that, you know, it doesn't truly blend away, but it does a little bit. So you can blend this out to a very, very sheer layer, which I think makes it very workable and very wearable. However, when you do top it with any of the other shades in this Quint, it does sort of kind of disappear. It doesn't really stand out. You don't really see that depth that you can sometimes get with some of the deeper shades in these Quints. So I don't think it's an issue with the formula of the deep shade, rather that these other shades are just a little bit too opaque for that particular purpose. Now we're going to go ahead and I'm going to share the 4 looks that I created so you can kind of see these in action, see how the shades perform in different combinations. Then we're going to come back and we're going to go through some swatch comparisons and my thoughts. Today we're going to be working with Dior Plum Tulle, and this is palette number 159. This is the Blender Pro from Sonia G, and I'm going to go into the purple in the middle. And I'm going to start here at the outer corner, and then I'm also going to put this color in the crease. On my eyes, I have the Viseart primer, which is, you know, more of a silicone type texture, so it's very smooth. And you can see there was a little bit of dust from that shade that got in this. This is the Refer 16. I'm going to go into this white shade here, and I'm just going to add this above the crease and kind of buff this upper portion of it a little bit more. Next up, I'm taking the Worker Pro from Synergy into this bottom left shade. I'm not loving it, but I do really like this shade, so I'm going to see how it goes on with my finger. Maybe I can get something a little bit smoother looking. I feel like it just, you know, I don't know. Just there's something about it I don't really care for. I don't know. Maybe it's just this color or the color combined with the finish. It's not great on my eyes. We're going to go into the very first shade here, and I'm using my finger for this. And I'm going to start on the inner corner and work my way out a little bit. Just add a little shine. Wiped off the Worker Pro and going into that first shade again. I'm going to add a little bit more of this coming out here. I'm going to get the first third of the eye with this. Well, this is it. I'm not loving it, but I'm going to do the rest of my makeup and then I will come back and finish this eye look. All right, so I'm just not really a fan of this eye look, so we're going to just kind of make it work for the day. We're taking the Chantecaille eye blend brush into the middle shade, and I'm going to smudge this along the lash line. It's not quite dark enough. Let's go into the deepest shade. This one's more pink than I thought, or than I want it, but let's try it. I think I'm going to use an eye pencil instead. This is not exactly what I want, but let's make it even. So I wiped off the brush. I'm going to go into this first shade. Wait, no. So I wiped off the brush. I'm going to go into this shade here for the lower lash line and smudge a little bit here. And I'm using the side of this to get a touch of white to add it to the inner corner here. And for the upper lash line, I'm taking this eye pencil from Chantecaille. This is the Violet Damask, and it's like a bluish purple, a blue base purple. So I'm just gonna smudge that a little bit right away so it's not harsh. And I think this is it. Now I'm just going to add some mascara and then I'll show you a distance shot. This is the final look from a distance and it's okay. It's not my favorite. We'll have to play with this palette more. So what I have on my face, I have the Clay de Peau Radiant Cream to Powder Foundation, and for blush I used the Pink Pearl Meteorites, and then I have the Pearl Glow all over, and that's basically it. The lock on my lips is the Chanel lock in 77 Dark Blossom from the spring collection. Thanks. Okay, so today we're going to start off with this deepest shade here, and this is the Chikuhodo T7. And I'm going to put this on the outer portion of the eye here. And I have the Viseart primer on. Next, I'm going in with the Blender Pro from Synergy, and I'm going to go into the shade next to that. And I'm going to add this to the crease. And I purposely did this Second, because I wanted to be able to drag in a little bit of that deepest shade, just to deepen it a tiny, tiny bit. You can see that this is a satin shade, and I'm just gonna add a touch more of that right where it kind of got brushed away at the top. And next I'm going into the shade in the middle, and I'm gonna put this right next to it. Just kind of blend those together a little bit. We'll see how that goes. And then we're going to go into this shade up here at the top for the inner portion of the eye here. And I'm going to blend that over. So I'm just taking the residue and kind of dusting it over the whole thing, so it kind of blends a little bit more seamlessly. So this is the eye, and you can kind of see, like, it kind of looks like there's a line where the two colors start to overlap, but if you move, you can kind of see that it actually is blended. It's just sort of the way the light hits it. So I'm just taking, this brush is clean, I'm just gonna kind of blend this just a touch more. See what I mean? Like when I turn, like right here, I see the line right here. But then when I turn, now the line's like here. So kind of interesting, but I think it's really just the way the light hits it. Wiped off the Blender Pro, and I'm just buffing above the crease, just with any of the powder that is up there. I'm not adding anything new. Then I'm taking the Rephr 03 into the white shade, and I'm twirling my brush into it. I'm gonna add this to the inner corner and right under the brow. For the lower lash line, I'm gonna mix the middle and this first shade here and just do a little bit of those two together. Taking the Chanel eyeliner in number 83, Cassis, and I'm just gonna run this along the upper lash line, just really close to the lashes. So this is the final eye look. I'll finish my makeup and show you a distance shot. And this is the final look from a distance. So I have on the Chanel blush in the Fleur de Printemps from the spring collection, as well as the new Pearl Glow Meteorites from the Guerlain spring collection, and the Guerlain Pearl Dust highlight. So I have on the Pearly Amber shade today. And on my lips, I have the Chanel lip liner in Nude Brun, topped with one of the Le Lion lipsticks in Beige Ardent. And this one is number 237. And that's everything. Okay, we're going to do a quick light eye today with the Westman Atelier brush. This is eyeshadow 1. And you can see that it's kind of like this chubby arrowhead style. We're gonna start off going into this middle purple, and I'm getting it on the edge here, and I'm going to put this along the lash line. You can see that this is a really pretty shade. And I'm now just gonna turn it and just kind of fade it up a little bit. Next, I'm going to go into the first shade here, and I'm going to use the paddle portion of the brush, and I'm going to sweep this over the entire lid and just give it some shimmer here. You can see that it's got a little bit of silver in it. It's kind of like a silvery, dusty lilac shade. Okay, and I'm not going to do a crease color today. I'm just going to kind of brush a little bit of this, no additional shadow, just brush a little bit into the crease to just kind of open up my eyes a little bit more instead of adding emphasis there. And now I'm going to take the very, very tip of the brush into the white shade, And I'm going to add a little bit of this to the inner corner and right under the brow. And for the lower lash line, I'm going to do a mix of these two shades. I'm just using the angled part of the brush again. Then I'm taking just a little eyeliner brush. This is actually the Royalty 332, and I'm going to go into the middle shade again, and I'm just going to stamp this very close to the lash line on the upper. So this is the eye look today. I'm going to finish my makeup and then I will show you a distance shot. This is the final look from a distance. And on my skin, I have on the new Guerlain Essentiel Soft Matte Foundation, as well as a light dusting of the Guerlain Meteorites and Pearl Glow from the Guerlain Spring Collection. And I have on the Chanel Fleur de Printemps blush from the Spring Collection also. And mascara is the new Victoria Beckham Future Lash. And so far, that's everything. Thanks. So I'm taking the mini booster from Sonia G into the deep shade here, this more burgundy shade. And I have the Tom Ford Emotion Proof eye primer on. I'm just gonna kind of dab this onto the outer portion of the lid. So I'm taking what's left and spreading it in the crease. Just gonna add a little bit more right along the lower lash line here, extending a little bit closer to the center. Taking the Sonia G Jumbo Blender into the middle shade here, and I'm going to put this all over the lid here. Just taking whatever's left and putting it in the crease, and I turned my brush to be able to move some product a little bit more. I wiped off the mini booster. I'm gonna go into this first shade here and put this on the inner corner. And just taking any residue under the brow. And I'm taking the mini booster into the middle shade, and it just got a little tiny bit on the tip, and I'm gonna run that under the lower lash line, starting from the outer corner. For the upper lash line, I'm taking the Chantecaille Stylo Yeux waterproof eyeliner in number 83 Cassis. And I'm just gonna run this lightly right against the lashes. That's it. All right, I'm gonna finish the rest of my makeup and I'll see you in a minute. So this is the majority of my look from a distance. I haven't finished everything yet, but this is what it looks like, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks. So I hope those were helpful. We're going to get started with some swatches. We're starting off with the Tom Ford Shade and Illuminate Base and Eye Palette in Intensity 2 Moonlit Violet. I'm going to swatch these 4 shades. So these are the 4 shades in here, and you can see here that the deeper purple shade is almost like a slightly lighter version of the middle shade in the Dior Quint. And this one here, this first shade, it's a little bit more gold, whereas this is going to be more brown and there's a little bit more like pink to it. But they do have kind of a similar vibe. The rest of the colors, these 2 here in the Tom Ford, these are not similar at all. We've got more of this rosy pink and a gray shade here compared to these. So, but overall, I do feel like these 2 are fairly similar. Looking at the Chantecaille Hummingbird in Cool, we're gonna swatch this purple and this taupe shade. So I'm gonna put these right here so you can see the purple is gonna be pretty similar to this deepest shade in the quad. You can see that the Quint actually has a little bit more red in it. It's almost like a mix of these 2. However, the Chantecaille has a strong satin sheen to it compared to this shade, which is matte. Now the taupe shade, this isn't really gonna go well with it, but I just wanted to compare because again, we're kind of looking at fairly similar color stories. You can see that this shade here is going to be more of a true taupe. There's definitely more brown in there and is a little bit warmer in tone as well. This is Piazza San Marco from Chantecaille in the La Chrome Luxe Duos. And I don't really think this deepest shade is going to be comparable. We're going to put that one right here so you can kind of see. Yeah, that's going to be more gray. But the lightest shade, I thought might have some similarities. Yes. So I think that this lighter shade here is going to be fairly similar to the first shade in the Quint. Now, I just wanted to mention Pink Sakura, number 849. This is the limited edition spring palette. I actually have the two of these swatched in the Pink Sakura video, and I'll leave that linked down below, but they're not very similar, so I'm not going to re-swatch them. We are going to move on and swatch Tutu though. And again, Tutu is not going to be super similar. We're going to swatch them though, just so you can see how the color stories compare. These are the first three. And the bottom two. So you can see that we've got this here is Tutu, and this here is Plum Tulle. So I'm just going to swatch a little of these closer. This taupe shade here, which is the first one, we're going to put that right here next to the Plum Tulle one. And again, that actually goes better with the Chantecaille Hummingbird. You can see it's going to be a little bit warmer, but they are fairly similar. And then we're going to take a look at this Wisteria shade here. And this one's going to be more blue based. Put that right here so you can see the difference in the tones. And last up, we have the deepest shade. I'll put that right here. You can see how deep that can actually get. But when you kind of brush that out, you can see that the tones are fairly similar between the middle shade in Plum Tulle and the deepest shade in Tutu. The only difference is that this can be built up to have this really deep pigment, whereas the one in Plum Tulle really doesn't. But if you dust it out, kind of spread it out, they're very similar. So that's it for my comparisons. Overall, I have to say that this is a nice Quint. I love seeing Quints and eyeshadow palettes in general with purple color stories, especially ones that have a little bit more of a blue-based purple, because I feel like more often than not, we see ones with more of a red-based or pink-based purple. So I think that there are some very nice shades in here, and I think that this particular Quint really does kind of balance the tones very well. We've got more blue-based and pink-based in here. We also have a nice neutral shade. We have sheer sparkly shades. So I think that overall it's a very nice balance. However, it's still not going to be one of my favorite Quints. There's just something about this color story where I really gravitate more so to these three shades. I feel like this more taupey satin shade just doesn't have enough impact on my particular skin tone, so that it's really not that useful. I would actually have preferred this to be a matte shade than a satin. And this one, I think it's a very nice shade and I like being able to buff it out and blend it out. However, I just don't think it is as impactful enough in corporation with these other shades. So I think it's a nice palette, but if I were looking for one of the Dior purple tone palettes, I think Tutu is a better palette than this one. So I like it. I'm glad I have it. I will use it, but it's not going to be one of my favorites. So overall, quality of the shadows in the Quint, I think are very nice. Again, I'm not super thrilled with the combination of that deepest shade, that more like burgundy plum shade. I feel like it's a very nice shadow, but it doesn't fit in well with these others. So even though the quality of the shadow itself is very nice, I feel like it doesn't really meet its intended purpose with this particular palette because of the finishes of the others and how much more opaque those are. So while I appreciate it, I just don't think it was the right decision to include it in this particular Quint. So overall, again, it's a great palette and I think it's a nice choice, but I do think that there are better choices out there for purple palettes. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this was helpful. If you have Plum Tulle, I would love to know what your thoughts are on it, especially if you have Plum Tulle and Tutu. Do you prefer one over the other? And I would love to know your opinion. So again, these are just my personal opinions on the Quint, but it does have very nice quality, and you can't really go wrong with any of the Dior Quints. It's just not going to be one of the ones that I reach for the most. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I will see you very soon. Have a great day and stay safe and healthy.